Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Sue Morter from Morter Institute for Bioenergetics. I have a question for you. You ever wonder why things are happening in your life? Why is this happening in my life? And why do I have to deal with this? And how in the world do I shift it, etc.? All right, so I want to invite you to change a simple thing that could change the entire way that information gets stored in your memory, how your subconscious continues to reference it, and the amount of defense physiology or angst in your body that gets set up in motion because of the very perspective of how we're looking at it. And that is an invitation for you to change the question from why is this even happening to me to why is this happening for me? What is it that is happening in this situation that is actually in my favor? What is it that I'm supposed to see here that is going to awaken me to a greater amount of my own magnificence if I just could learn to look at it differently? What is the universe calling up and out of me at this time that is in my favor? Now, it's quite an interesting thing to consider doing that when you've just lost your job or your spouse has just walked out on you again, or there's some kind of stress or strain that you're witnessing on the news. Why is this happening in our world, etc. I'm going to invite you into an entire paradigm shift and looking at life completely from a different perspective, because we have the opportunity to change our life experience if we do so. So I want to invite you into this idea that I call the bus stop conversation. If we start to look at everything that is happening in our lives as if there is something that is happening that is trying to prod me awake, is trying to nudge me into my greatness, and if I don't look at it at this time, I'm going to go down the road again and have another set of circumstances that are just hard to deal with, something I'm going to have to forgive later at some point when I'm exhausted of holding my grudge. I'm tired of living under the confines of life not going in my favor, of things never stacking up for me, but always against me, one thing after another. It's always something. Those kinds of thought patterns are limiting your life experience in a profound way. And just by simply shifting our perspective, our come from, how we're looking at them, it can change our entire life. It will not only change our life experience and the amount of joy and abundance that we get to engage in, it will also change our health. Because when you perceive yourself to be under attack, your body kicks in to attack mode, and you're constantly pumping adrenaline into your system, and the thyroid gets exhausted, and the next thing you know, you've got immune deficiencies, and you're prone for injury, and your body is exhausted. You have a difficult time getting up in the morning, and you can't wait to get to bed at night. Some people are taking medications to wake up. Other people are taking medications then to shut down at the end of the day, all because we're interpreting life as if it's against us instead of for us. And I just want you to get this. Life is in your favor, period. There are no exceptions to that. So just think about it this way. So there's this thing that I call the bus stop conversation. It's kind of like a soul contracts idea that we agree before we come in here to have certain experiences, to awaken ourselves to certain aspects of our soulful self, our big, highest truth that no other set of circumstances could possibly prod us awake in, except for the ones that we find ourselves in. So we go to the bus stop to catch the bus, to come into this life experience on planet Earth. And while you're hanging out at the bus stop, you have a conversation with the people who are there. And you basically are saying, you know, I want to have a huge experience of forgiveness, for example, because I hear that this forgiveness thing is a really awesome experience, and so I'm going in. I'm going to go in. I've saved up my money for my ticket, and here I am at the bus stop getting ready to catch the bus to go in. I'm going to have a big old level 10 experience of forgiveness. I'm not just going to go, you know, the 2 or 3 or level 4 kind of idea. I'm going gangbusters. I'm going to go for the gusto. So people at the bus stop are like, wow, that's pretty awesome, amazing experience that you're signing up for. How are you going to do that? And you say, well, I guess I'm going to have to experience something that is kind of nearly unforgivable. And then I'm going to live life for a while under this impression that that thing never should have happened in the first place. And as I go along in life thinking that in the back of my mind, that it never should have happened, that it was wrong, that people shouldn't behave that way, it was unfair, unright, not appropriate in any form, I'm going to feel a contraction in my life. I'm going to feel like I'm living in a smaller reality than if I were to walk around thinking of possibilities and thinking that I'm loved and supported all the time, right? So you can kind of get the feel for this. So now, after living that way for a long enough period, what we're actually going to start to experience is a compression in our energy field, a surgence of fight or flight, rise to the occasion, warrior kind of chemistry and physiology in the body, which will ultimately lead to a breakdown in the cells and exhaustion in the systems. And the next thing you know, you're going to be sick or tired or worn out or apathetic or depressed and maybe even a little paranoid about why life is just so negative, constantly looking over your shoulder for the next time you're going to get duped just like that again. And so there's a moment that you could flip this. And this is a moment where it actually happens for more people than not. I would like it to happen sooner than this for people, but here's a way that our life kind of unfolds in a natural sense. We get sick and tired, and we start looking around for another alternative. And at some point, we drop into this state of forgiveness. We drop into this idea that, it's not worth it. If I'm holding on to this grudge and it's costing me my life and my health and my relationships and my attitude, and it's causing me to feel depressed or broken in some way, then I'm going to just let it go. And as we let it go, we immediately start to feel an upliftment and a possibility again, and life becomes more optimistic automatically. All because we let go of something in our minds and we let our hearts be a little more free again. And so what I want you to get is that down the road at some point, if we're ever going to forgive it, wouldn't it behoove us to forgive it sooner? In fact, there's something even more that we could do sooner than that doesn't even require forgiveness. And that's an entire paradigm shift that allows us to recognize that at the bus stop, we requested that this thing occur so that we could, at some point, reach inside ourselves and find that place that is just okay, accepting, able to be present with the circumstances that have unfolded so that we could feel and experience ourselves as this magnificent creator that is capable of forgiveness, that is capable of acceptance, that is capable of flow all the time. So the point is this. At the bus stop, we request the circumstances that are occurring in our lives so that we can recognize our magnificence, so that we can pull ourselves forward in a way that no other set of circumstances would have possibly called forth from us other than these. So the hardest thing that has happened in your life is most likely the greatest gift in your life. And that gift remains unpacked if you remain unforgiven. If you remain observing it as though you are a victim and that this thing happened to you and that it never should have happened, as long as we continue down the road focusing on it in such a fashion, we live on what I call the backside of the model, trapped inside this victimized perspective. So if we just were to flip it and say, some part of my highest self requested this set of circumstances so that the whole of me could wake up and recognize my greatness. And because of these circumstances, I'm unpacking, I'm unfolding, and in fact, I'm flourishing and I'm blossoming into my true magnificent self. So if this is the case, then you'll also start to see that the people and the circumstances that have been the hardest for you, the person that is the most difficult to forgive, for instance, inside of one of those circumstances perhaps in your life, actually at the bus stop was the one who raised their hand when you said, I in fact am going to need someone to do something that's nearly unforgivable. Who will do that? So at the bus stop, the conversation circles around, people are throwing out ideas. You say, it has to be something really big, like somebody drinks too much at happy hour, gets behind the wheel, knowing better, knowing that's not what we do. They get drunk, they cross the center line, hit my car, take my family and cripple me or something like that. In the whole of that circumstance, we can certainly build a case for how that was wrong and never should have happened. And there's another way of looking at it. If in the midst of that, that was part of my request, and I requested that someone be that perpetrator, then that individual that crossed the center line is actually the one who cared the most. Because at the bus stop, who wants that role? Who's going to raise their hand to be the bad guy? And so in this, it's part of a bigger conversation, but it is something that just tapping into this idea. When I travel around the world, speaking to tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, in the course of the years that I've been teaching, the thing that brings people forward with tears in their eyes and an opening in their heart to say to me, "You changed my life," it's because of this kind of a moment where the flip happens and we decide that everything that's happening in our lives is part of a bus stop conversation that we requested. And when they set themselves free in that kind of a way, everything begins to unpack and unfold. So I have lots of other examples of how people have experienced and flipped their lives through this bus stop conversation in the Energy Codes book, a 7-step system for awakening your spirit and healing your body and truly learning to live your very best and empowered life. And you can order the book at drsuemorter.com/order the energy codes. I look forward for you discovering how the bus stop conversation can free you up in a multitude of ways, reframing how your past has actually been leading you to the most magnificent present and future you could imagine.